My name is Dr. Julena. I'm a professor of management at the Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University, and I'm here to talk to you today about the importance of understanding your values in terms of being an effective leader. Leadership is about influencing people, and hopefully you have a positive influence on people, but ultimately leadership is about influencing people. And one of my favorite quotes about leadership is given by John Quincy Adams, and he says, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." So leadership, in essence, is inspiring others to do more and be more by themselves. This definition of leadership reminds us that leadership is not about rank or position or being in a formal leadership role. Leadership is not reserved for the elite. Rather, leadership is something that everybody has the capacity to do. Not only do we have the capacity, but we also have the responsibility to be leaders in our everyday life. An important component in inspiring others to do more and be more is trust. And today I want to talk to you about the role of knowing your values in growing trust and inspiring others. Edward Demings, a renowned management expert and optimization guru, once said, "Trust is mandatory for optimization of a system. Without trust, each component will protect its own immediate interest to its own long-term detriment and to the detriment of the entire system." So this quote illustrates the importance of trust in optimizing, in creating something greater, in doing and being more. So leadership and trust go hand in hand. Leaders inspire others to do more and become more as they inspire trust in those people. Trust, at its basic form, is a willingness to be vulnerable to another party, to another person. It's hard to influence people or inspire them if they don't trust you. Thus, building trust is an important foundational component of leadership. As others trust leaders, they're more likely to take on challenging or risky things. They're more likely to tackle a challenging assignment that may not be guaranteed to succeed because they trust their leader. They may be more likely to recommend new methods of working on things because there's trust with those around them that those will be implemented. They won't be looked down upon for offering up new suggestions. They're more likely to admit to mistakes or to identify failures of themselves or other people because they trust those around them. So in essence, trust in our leaders and others around us inspire us to do more and be more. Let me give you or share with you an experience of an organization executive that illustrates the importance between the link of leadership and trust. One day, a top manager in a big manufacturing firm was going into the office of a former employee to find some files that he needed. In his perusal of the files, he came across a folder, and on the folder was written the acronym CYA. And you might know that CYA stands for Cover Your Ass. So the executive began to peruse this folder, and in this folder he found handwritten notes and copies of memos describing why this employee had engaged in certain behaviors and under whose authority the employee had engaged in these behaviors. In essence, the employee had been documenting or creating a case for covering his own ass if he ever needed to. The executive thought about how much time this employee must have spent collecting this information and engaging in self-protective behaviors. Well, the executive wanted to understand why this was happening at their organization, why the employee felt like he needed to spend time doing this. So he brought in some researchers to research the organization. And what the researchers found through their research was that trust in leaders, including top management as well as supervisors, middle managers, people more specifically around us, that trust in leaders significantly impacts an employee's ability to focus on their job and do behaviors that enhance and enrich employee performance. Behaviors like going above and beyond one's formal work role. So those behaviors that maybe are proactive or behaviors that help them do more and be more. So trust in supervisors or leaders influences performance of employees. Specifically, employees are willing to do more and be more on their own when they have trust in their supervisor. But lack of trust results in spending time and energy worrying and attempting to monitor the behavior of those around us. And thus employees' attention was distracted from completing their own work. So you aren't being inspired to do more and be more on your own because you're more worried about protecting yourself from untrustworthy people around you. So what we see is that trust is an important foundational principle of leadership, of inspiring others to do more and be more. Integrity is an important component of trust. Trust is essentially made up of three components: integrity, warmth, and competence. And today we're going to focus on integrity because building trust and integrity is an important part of that. And living our values, learning to live our values, can help us build trust and integrity. So living one's core values helps us build trust, but why is that? It's because when a person is living their values, they're more likely to behave consistently and with more authenticity, thereby facilitating trust. So others can be more vulnerable with you because they know how you will behave and they know what kind of person you are. Values can be things like courage, self-control, justice, service, kindness, health, honesty, creativity. These values are what we might call core values, and these are values that we tend to have over long periods of time. I value honesty over many years. This is something that's important to me. Or I value health or service. While we can also have values that may be changed depending on our life situation or other factors. So for example, work-life balance may be an important value to you when you have a family, but not as much of a value when you don't. So there can be values that change over time, and then there are also core values that tend to stay the same over long periods of time. Your personal values are a fundamental part of who you are and who you want to be. By becoming more aware of your values, you can use them to guide you in making choices every day, thereby enhancing consistent behavior and increasing trust. For example, we make daily choices every day to live our values. So after work, do you choose to go to the gym, or do you choose to go to happy hour with your coworkers? This choice will depend on your values. Do you value health? Is that one of your core values? In which case you should choose going to the gym. However, if one of your core values is career success, you probably would choose to build relationships with coworkers by hanging out with them at happy hour. So these small decisions are important to consistently living your values. Your values should determine your priorities too. For instance, if you value family but are required to work 70+ hours per week at your job, you may experience some internal stress because your actions aren't lining up with your values. So knowing one's values is a first step towards increasing integrity and trust. In order to identify your values, you might look at a list of values similar to this list that you see on the screen. So to identify your core values, you would take some time. You need to take some time to sit down and reflect on what is important to you. This can be kind of difficult in our society where we have many distractions, many things that vie for our attention, social media, Netflix, all sorts of things vie for your attention. So it's important that you set those distractions aside and take time to sit down and really think about what's important to you, what you do value. Looking at a list like the list provided on your screen can help you start to begin to think about different values. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but you should think about what it is that's important to you. Identify your top 10 to 15 values and work down from there. So identify 15 things that are important to you, and then narrow it down to 10 top values, 7 top values, 5, and then 3. Once you get to 3, these may be the things that are most important to you. There may be many things that you value, but it's helpful to understand what you value most. What are those top values? Knowing what you value most can help you prioritize and make decisions when values are in conflict. So for example, if I value career success and family relationships, how do I behave, or what decision do I make when these values come into conflict? When I have to choose between these two things. Knowing your top values can help you make that decision. In assessing your core values, you may ask yourself, am I proud of my values? Would I be willing to share my values with other people? So think about these questions as you think about what's important to you. Having identified your values, you may notice that there are times when you fail to live your core values. So how can we more consistently live our values? So obviously the first step is to identify our values and make our values an important part of our life. So it's important to remind yourself of what your values are consistently so you can remember and continue to make choices based on those values. Once you've identified your values, you then need to make those values an important part of your decision-making process. One way you can do this is by asking yourself, when you have to make decisions, how would I behave in this situation if I were living my core values? Every day you make choices. Some of them will be big, some will be small, like going to the gym or going to happy hour with your coworkers. But when you make a choice, when you have to make a choice, it helps to think about how that choice relates to your core values. And at first this may seem very tedious and cumbersome, but the more you practice making values an important part of your daily decision-making process, the more natural it will become to behave or make those decisions based on your values more naturally and more automatically. So, as you begin to seek ways to improve your leadership ability, you first need to identify your values and incorporate those values into your everyday decision-making processes. Doing this will help you behave more consistently and authentically and will help you inspire trust. Remember, your actions speak louder than your words. This is important in building trust and being a leader. To live your values. Let your actions inform people about what your values are. By cultivating trust, you are in a better position to inspire others to do more and be more.